Hi again, everybody, and welcome to today's Teen Talk online. This is being brought to you again by Cork County Council, and this element is being funded by Healthy Ireland through PUBL as well, and it's overseen locally by our local Community and Development Committee. That's our LCDC. We're delighted to have Elaine Crowley on today from Virgin TV. Elaine has been with Virgin TV and its previous names for over 20 years at this stage. So Elaine, you're very welcome to today's Teen Talk.
It's an absolute pleasure to join you online today, if not in person.
Yeah, I mean, we've had to cancel the events. We were due to hold the events in this month in Charleville and Little Island and Bantry, but it's great that all the speakers were available to come online. So where are you and now, and how are you managing your day-to-day activities?
Well, I'm sitting at home now. I just finished recording the show inside and work out in Virgin Media, and I came straight home. Now it's quite strange at the moment because I'm on the list of essential workers for some strange reason, but keep the nation chatting. But normally I would have a panel of three men or women with me in studio, and then I'd have various guests on. But now, much like we're doing here, my entire show is me in studio, like you are sitting there, and all my guests are virtual. So I've had to completely turn the entire format of the show on its head, because I produce the show as well as present it. And I have a team of two working with me. We're a fairly tight team. So one of them comes into studio to output the show, and the other one stays at home to do the research. So it's a very strange setup at the moment. But I'm in there every day, and I'm coming home, but the place is like a ghost town.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how everybody is evolving as well to change the way that they're working, and I'm sure it might lead some future changes as well, the way things are done. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think do you know what it has done for me particularly? And I know I've spoken out quite a lot about the ills of social media and how it has power to do evil. But do you know what? It's doing a lot of good. And I think for the first time in a long time, the benefits have outweighed the bad sides of it, as it were, because like I can talk to you here now, but I can talk to my family, I can talk to my friends, I can talk to people like that. So yeah, I think it's opened, the whole world of technology is opened hugely for us now in a way that I would never have done before. Like I'm a bit of an idiot when it comes to this sort of stuff. So I mean, I'm on Zoom with you here now. I never even heard of Zoom before all this happened. So I think it will open up a lot of opportunity, I think, for people to perhaps work from home a bit more and maybe flexible in their hours, and employers and employees and teachers and students, etc., to work in different ways. So it's interesting times ahead, I think.
Yeah, it's great. And you were going to be the MC for our event actually, and but I think I've taken over that role, but I don't think I'll be doing it as well as you were going to do it. But what was good
Jeannie
to
Mac,
have,
you're doing well. You're doing well. Don't worry.
but the reason I suppose we were so glad to have you as our MC, obviously for your qualities in hosting an event, but you have had, like everybody else, lots of challenging experience, in your own life, and that's so you bring that whole bit of that reality and that ownership to the whole topic of of health and well-being, and particularly mental health, and particularly to the teenagers that might be out there now that this event was originally directed towards, which was transition year students. So do you want to maybe tell us a little about your history and the challenges that you may have overcome as you were a teenager, and what advice you might give?
Yeah. Well, when I was a teenager, I didn't know a lot about depression. I didn't think that I had depression. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the way I was feeling. I didn't know what so-called normal felt like. So in hindsight, yes, looking back, even as far back as primary school, I was displaying all the overt signs, but without actually realizing it. I remember, I've said this before in some interviews. Like when I was 8, I used to love music. I used to love the guitar. I wrote a song saying, "I wish I was happier," which is, looking back, my heart is breaking for that 8-year-old child who wrote that, because it's kind of sad to think that it's been going on for so much of my life, and I waited so long before I accepted it myself and actually got a proper diagnosis. So in terms of my evolution on all of this, I suppose I was in Not in secondary school. I went through secondary school pretty okay. I started college when I was quite young. I did my leaving at 16, which I know this is originally aimed at transition year students. A lot of transition students be older than 16 now, never mind going off to college for the first time. And I found going off to college very traumatic. I moved to Dublin. I moved away from home for the first time. And I'm from Cork originally, so I have a big family, 9 brothers and sisters. My mum and dad, I'd never really been away from home before. So that really hit me very, very hard. The whole going to college, whatever about the academic side of it, that was fine, but the social side of it, and I missed my family so much. And that's when I think it became more and more obvious, when I was out of the support structure of my family, that there was perhaps some issues there. I would have been perhaps 19 then. I started college at 17 and 19. I was a couple of years in when I would have, I suppose, been diagnosed officially by the GP, or it was mentioned that I had depression. I remember I broke my ankle. I was in college and I had to move home for 6 weeks, but I was dragging my heels about going back up to college. And God, I'll never forget it. I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning baking. Anyone who knows me, I do not bake. I don't make breakfast. I'm not a cook or a cleaner or anything. I'm absolutely not a domestic goddess. I'm a domestic devil. So I'm useless. But I thought it was normal. I was sleeping all day, waking up at the night time. My whole body clock was all over the place. And my dad, who was a primary school teacher, he always had an inkling. Well, no, he didn't always have an inkling. He always knew I needed perhaps a bit more emotional support than I was letting on. But he sat me down, and my mum sat me down and said, listen, we need to bring you to the doctor. There's something not quite right here. And so I went to my local GP and I was put on antidepressants for the first time then. But I thought, Asher, it's only a situation. I broke my ankle and it made me fed up. I'll be grand. I'll take the tablets for a few months and then I'll get back to myself. And that cycle went on for years.
Wow. And, what did you find then was something that made a trigger for you to change the situation, or what helped you in that situation to move on?
I was embarrassed for a very long time. I started in TV3 as a reporter, a news reporter, 20 years ago now. And I had my job and I was a news anchor, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with my life on the outside. I didn't have any massive traumatic thing to happen me to make me the way I am. And I felt guilty about that. I was like, why should I feel bad? There's nothing wrong with me. I have a loving family. I have a happy life. I'm not poverty stricken. I'm in a good place. And I was thinking on what is it? I can't be depressed. I can't have this wrong with me because nothing has happened to make me be like this. And this went on for years. I tried everything, you name it, under the sun to kind of fix myself. I did sweat lodges. I did Buddhist weekends. I'd gone off doing retreats left, right and centre, meditation, before alternative stuff was in the news at all. I know it's very en vogue at the moment. I was off doing all sorts of mad stuff just to kind of get myself to feel better about my life, because I had just become so used to feeling flat and very little gave me any joy or happiness. But I was still convinced that there was nothing wrong with me, in inverted commas. I hate using that phrase, but it took me until I was actually out of news for a bit. I was a news anchor and a reporter for many, many years, covered many, many tragic, horrific stories. I stopped doing news. It was after this particular story, and even to call it a story doesn't really do it justice. It was a horrific case in Oma where there was this man had basically set his home on fire with his wife and children in it, and they all perished. I think it was 8 of them. It was utterly awful. I was 3 days there, and I came back from that going, I can never do a story like this again. I can't cover a story like this again. I'm just not able. So from then, coincidentally, I got a job presenting Midday, which was a kind of a light-hearted chat show at the time. So I gladly accepted doing that for a while. And it was a couple of years into that I'd be interviewing people like you're talking to me here, and they'd share their life stories with me. They'd open up because it's quite a conversational chat. We're just sitting around a table shooting the breeze. And I felt like such a fraud after a while, because there were all these people sharing their stories of mental health issues, perhaps of pregnancy loss, of losing loved ones, spilling their guts. And I was sitting there like a fraud. And I remember even saying it to my doctor a few years ago, and they're like, you'd want to be careful, you know, about talking about this, because you don't really want people to think you're mad. They might look at you differently in your professional capacity. And you know what? I was afraid of that as well. But at some point, I just had an epiphany, and I was doing a photo shoot for Irish Country magazine, actually, had opened up recently enough around that time. And I was their cover girl. And I did the shoot, and the shoot was lovely. And I was doing the interview with a girl called Aisling O'Toole, who was on my panel. And I just went, you know what, Aisling, I have to tell you the truth. I can't lie to you. And my depression story is the first time I spoke out about it publicly. And it was, in one way, a weight off my shoulders. But in another way, I was absolutely terrified to admit it to I think when everybody else knows about it, that's when it becomes very real to you as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very interesting story, and thank you for sharing it, first of all, because it's, you know, it's never an easy thing to do. But there's two elements there as well that I might like you to get into as well. Obviously, it sounds like that you gave yourself quite a hard time for not feeling great, you know, for feeling in a depressed state, for not feeling well. And, you know, what advice would you give yourself now, looking back on that, to give yourself a break for not feeling okay? You know, and as well as that, you know, what other, you mentioned about opening up to somebody else, you know, how important was that, talking to other people, and how did that help you?
I think like opening up to somebody else, I talked to people over the years about it, but I think to recognize that for someone like me, that it was a chronic condition, that it wasn't going away, that was the hard part for me to accept. And that was the hard part for me to learn to live with. That, yes, for me personally, I know it doesn't work for everybody. I will be on medication for the rest of my life. And if I go off medication, I crash and burn. And it's not, and God knows I tried over the years, it's not for me. But there's a combination that's suitable for everybody, that's right for everybody. Looking back, if I could give myself advice way back then, I would probably have sought, and this route as well isn't for everybody, but I probably a clinical diagnosis a lot sooner, because I think for me, the sort of person I am, even though it took me into my late 30s before I actually went to see a psychiatrist, because even the word psychiatrist, the stigma surrounding it, even still, like, oh, you're up to the loony bin, you're doing this, you're doing that, is awful. But for me, that was the step, that it's a medical problem for me. It's a medical issue for me. If I broke my leg, I go to a doctor and get it fixed. If I had diabetes, I go to an endocrinologist and get my insulin sorted. I just have something different. And once I found that acceptance within me, then that was the first step in living with mental illness. Let's call a spade it is. I think there's a lot more openness in talking about it now, and initiatives like you were doing yourself there, routine talks, none of that was around when I was in secondary school. You didn't really hear of anything like that. If anyone had taken their lives, it was kind of hushed up. No one talked about it. There was the stigma was still there. And you know what, in my opinion, the stigma still is there, for all the amount we chat about it. That's why I am so vocal in my everyday show. It's nice to do a one-off thing like this, but I want to bring, and I think I have done that over the last decade, talking about your feelings, mental health challenges into everyday conversation. I don't really believe in having awareness days as such when it comes to this, or months. It should be a part of everyday life. So if you're feeling bad, it's just like if you have, I don't want to minimize, but if you have a bad headache and you're not feeling great, I want anybody out there to be able to do the same. Listen, I am like mentally not feeling great today. Sure, even earlier on I was talking to you and I was going to lie and say I had an appointment or something, I can't do the chat with you today. I was just feeling really bad. I had a bad day yesterday and I wasn't sure if I could do the talk with you justice. Sorry, now I'm tearing up a bit, because even now it's hard to admit that I'm having bad days. But I've learned to be a lot less hard on myself. I still give myself an awful tough time. I am not going to lie. It's the biggest obstacle I face is being a little kinder to myself. But I'm a lot better than I used to be. That's for damn sure.
That's great. And thank you for your honesty as well. It really brings us the real element to this as well. So looking ahead now, what does life look like ahead for you at this stage?
Well, at the moment, it's me in the studio on my own, talking to people on the screens, because you have to keep the home fires burning. The old workload has tripled. I'm fairly exhausted. I miss my mammy an awful lot. She's down in New Trupert House in Cork. All I want is to snuggle, man. But sure, it can't be doing that. She's cocooning. So I think at the moment, and it's very difficult to do because I've kind of perfectionist tendencies as well, is to take each day as it comes, and excuse me, don't plan too far in the future. If I think too much about what's going to happen next year or in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time, I get crippled with anxiety and worry. And that's something I just don't want to do anymore. Excuse me. And I'm more,
that's the key message. Yeah, I think that's really
yeah.
good. It's dealing with now as well, so it's a very good answer.
And there's some practical things you can do as well. I mean, a night's sleep is the most important thing you can do. And that's actually, sleeping right got me on my road to recovery, or as recovered as I am. And I think, you know what, living with depression or living with anxiety is something it's not to be ashamed of anymore. So yes, on my road to so-called recovery, that's what I've been doing. But a night's sleep is the single most important thing you can do. If you're not sleeping, you're not resting, your body's not regenerating on a cellular level, and your mind isn't resting either. So for anyone, the first thing, if you're suffering at the moment, you need to get your sleep sorted by any means possible. Get your sleep sorted out. And I don't mean by drinking a bottle of wine to knock yourself out at night. Talk to your GP, talk to your friends, lifting the worry off yourself. If you're feeling overwhelmed, even talking to somebody else that you trust and you love is wonderful. But if you don't feel you can trust anyone in your immediate circle, there's great helplines that are available out there that I'm sure you have on your websites as well, that just lift up the phone and talk to somebody about what you're going through. And even the relief of that can ease your mind a little bit, because often depression and anxiety go hand in hand. And if you're lethargic during the day, you don't get everything done. You're awake night worrying about what you haven't gotten done in the daytime, and then you're worried about the world ending, and what's going to happen, like if there's a pandemic like we have now. So that's why I think I'm coping. I had a bad day yesterday, but I'm coping a little bit better than someone who maybe isn't used to feeling like this. Like sometimes this is the way most people are feeling now. This awful dread is what people who like me and like others who suffer with mental health issues, that's what we feel like all the time. So it's like, sure, we got this, we're grand, we'll help you through it. And I have a lot of friends of mine who are suffering really, really badly, and they've never had to worry before. They've never had this, that I'm on the phone to quite often, just talking them through. And listen, it will pass, you will feel better, because it's frightening. It's frightening when you're feeling like this for the first time. And I think a lot of teenagers, when they are in secondary school with the hormonal changes and things like that, that is when depression quite frequently will manifest itself in a larger capacity, is in those teenage years when you're in secondary school, perhaps going into transition year, and the hormones are all over the place, and then these things feed up. So I think it's important to accept yourself as you are. You're perfect as you are. Every single human being on this planet is perfect as they are. You don't need to change anything about yourself. Give yourself a break. Be kind to yourself. Talk to somebody. Give yourself a hug. And you know what? If you're having a bad day, you can take to the bed as well. Put the duvet over your head and watch Netflix, and don't talk to anybody, because you're allowed to do that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's great messages, really. It's refreshing as well, and it's reassuring, because everybody is going through a challenging time, particularly at the moment, and it's affecting absolutely everybody, no matter who you are or where you are. So we're all going through this together as well, really.
We really are, and I think it's a good thing that you're still doing this, because I think now more than ever, as families, as communities, as even online communities, it's a tough time for an awful lot of people. You're cooped up at home with either there's husbands, wives, and sons and daughters and grannies and children and everything, spending too much time together. And that, if you need some me time, it's hard to get that kind of me time. So it's okay to argue as well, it's okay to have fights, it's okay to have those, but I think it's very important to keep those lines of communication open, and take the word should out of your vocabulary. I should feel this, I should feel that, I should do that, I should do that. You shouldn't do anything. Take it out, take it completely out, because the power that word can have over people who are suffering is massive. give yourself a break. And if you're in home, if you're cooped up, if you're worried, give yourself a break. As long as your mental and physical health is managing okay at this time, everything else, it too shall pass. This won't go on forever. It might seem overwhelming at the moment. It's not going to go on forever. It will pass. And if you're having a bad episode with your mental health at the moment, if you're feeling anxious or depressed and you feel overwhelmed, remember it will pass, because that's what gets me through. Last year I had a very bad episode, and I struggled to get out of bed in the morning. I struggled to function. But what I knew intellectually was, I've gotten over this before. I get over it again. It will pass. Just keep saying that to your head. It will get better. You will get better. You will.
Yeah, that's a really, really key message as well, even from your experience as well, to just to keep going. And it's building resilience over time as well. Is resilience, would you see that as a part of what you developed?
I think so. I think I've always been pretty resilient, but I think when it comes to this, there is a kind of a toolkit that I have kind of formed around myself now. I mean, a lot of people who've gone through CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy, or WRAP, which is a wellness action recovery plan. I think that's what it is anyway. I'm not too good at the old acronyms now. I'm not even sure if acronyms is the right name, to be honest. My head's a bit scrambled today. But, there are things you can do. So for me, if I'm feeling really, really bad, I need to sleep. I need to eat properly. I need to get some exercise. Vitally important. Vitally important. The last thing you'll want to do is go out the door or go for a walk. Like, I love lifting weights. I feel so much better after it. I hate the thought of doing it. But you have to, with difficulty, once you feel up to it, force yourself to do these little things, and you will build these things. So if you can feel, and a lot of people, if you can feel the wave coming to get you, you can kind of stop in its tracks before it completely drowns you. And that's what I've kind of learned to do over the years.
That's really good. And I think you're so right in just saying about building up those tools as well. And there's lots of tools out there, and there's different tools because different people need different things at different times.
Mm-hmm.
And you've mentioned as well there many times that not everything will work for everybody. You need to keep trying and keep finding those tools that work for you, and bank on them and rely on them when you need them.
Yeah, and they are there, and your tool might be a person that you go to. It might be something silly like a special place you go for a walk that nobody else will be around. It might be going on a Zumba class. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's something that makes everybody a little bit happy, or can bring them the remembrance of joy. Find what that first thing is. And just it always is there. I mean, you can have the darkest day, but you mightn't feel joyous, but you can have the memory of feeling joyous, and it's there for everybody. And just building it, and little bits, and write down things that make you feel happy, that you're grateful for. I know the gratitude journals that are out now. A lot of people think they're a load of old, but it's actually wonderful when you actually write down the good things that you have in your life. You're watching yourself writing it. You're seeing it on paper, and it does actually help a lot.
That's brilliant. Elaine, thank you so much for sharing, your story and what you've learned over the years. It's a very valuable advice. While I'm chatting to you, just to finish up, and you mentioned about the helplines that are available, I actually have a sheet here, so I'm just going to share this on the screen as well before we finish up, if I can. And it
Brilliant.
just has a lot of the numbers that are available as well. So I hope everybody can see that. You might confirm to me, Elaine, that you can see that.
Yeah, I can see you there. So we have Jigsaw, Childline, Pieta House, the Samaritans, and the HSC, and they're all wonderful, wonderful resources, and they've helped so many people over the years, and it's important that we keep these services going as well, because they've saved many, many lives and will save more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So listen, thank you so much again, Elaine, and good luck with your continuing use of technology in delivering the show.
Listen,
and we wish you...
Wish me luck. I'm running out of people to talk to at this stage online.
Well, listen, the best of luck with it, and thank you again. We're very grateful for you coming on this Teen Talk today.
Thank you, Niall. It's been an absolute pleasure.